Hey everybody, welcome back. So, I just kind of had some things on my mind I wanted to talk about today, and I'll try to stay on topic as much as possible. I'm sorry, my memory's just not the greatest today. But I wanted to talk about how, like when people, when you first meet people and they don't know you yet, and or just depending on certain settings like work and everything, time and place. I wanted to talk about how when you like water yourself down for people, for lack of a better term, I feel like this is something really everybody has to do every day, and it's understandable, professionalism and making a good impression and getting people to like you, and kind of when you're first initiating kind of relationships, and yeah, it's pretty complicated. I'm sure it's something that really a lot of people struggle with, including myself. And I don't know. I just kind of had it on my mind lately. Um, because sometimes I just feel like that, like, okay, people don't have to know everything about you. It's okay to have some mystery to yourself and everything. That's part of people getting to know you. And that's just kind of how it works. But when you feel like you constantly have to water yourself down around certain types of people, especially kind of going back to that video I made about like certain hobbies and stuff that people have. I don't know. I feel like that gets so difficult sometimes, and I don't know how people, like, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough, and it's just very hard for people to deal with because not everybody likes the same things, and that makes life wonderful. People are always going to be different, and that's cool. But when you feel like you constantly have to like moderate yourself or just make yourself seem less intense for people, it gets so exhausting sometimes because if it's a couple things here and there, that's whatever. But if it's like things you really enjoy and you feel like you can never talk about them because people don't understand, or if it's like a show you watch other people really don't like or they just don't understand it, and you really have to kind of go out of your way to find other people who like that same show, for example, then it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of always like if you work with certain types of people, or even certain types of people that you're friends with, and it's like there's the little circle of people talking about their hobbies, their day, and everything, and you feel like you're always on the outside of that circle because you just really stand out. You're just really different from that person. And, maybe you have some things in common with them, but I mean, sometimes the real big things that really get people passionate and excited are not always the same thing when it comes from one person to the next. And that's when it really just gets so aggravating, so challenging, and that's when you feel more inclined to like just kind of be alone and be isolated and be depressed, which I also made a video about. And oh my gosh, it's just, any kind of situation in just certain days, it just feels like it's same stuff, different day. So yeah, that's kind of what I had on my mind lately. And sorry if this is starting out a little all over the place. I don't know. It's just something that gets to me sometimes. Because being who you are, having your own hobbies, it makes you a very unique, very beautiful person. But not being able to share that stuff with people, it's like you don't get to share that with them, and you feel like you don't get to share your happiness and your enthusiasm with them, and it can be very aggravating. And there are ways that you can talk about that stuff. Like I said, I've had other videos where I even mentioned that, joining support groups for that kind of thing and talking to people online. But I think what gets really aggravating is like that's a really good outlet if you're like at home and you're just kind of doing your own thing. But if you're actually going out and hanging out with people, or you're like meeting your coworker for lunch and things like that, I feel like that's kind of time and place, it's just time and place. And that's how life is in really a lot of ways, but especially if you're somebody who has kind of social deficits, you have a hard time communicating with people as it is, or reading body language and nonverbal cues. And then you kind of add that on top of it, it makes communicating and really kind of trying to make relationships with people like 100 times more difficult. And it's like, it's already difficult in one instance, like, okay, you talk to somebody and they're not going to understand every interest that you have, and then you add all that stuff on top of it. You could see why making friendships and really getting along, clicking with people is so difficult for some people, and why they kind of get to a point where they really just start kind of going inward and just they just kind of, they're just like alone, or they just don't get out very much because it's just so much work. But then nobody likes to be alone either. So, watering yourself down can be very important in various situations like jobs, because you do want to be professional at work and make a good first impression, and you don't want to be too high strung with people. And I've had issues with that many times. So I totally get that. It is definitely kind of learning it over time. Through experience, you really kind of learn to sharpen those skills, and it gets easier because nobody's born knowing this stuff overnight. It just like anything. But these are the kind of things I just feel like are actually quite common and cause a lot of depression that people have. And yes, like I said, there are some ways to help, but does that really, like, obviously that it does help, but it doesn't take away the overall difficulty and frustration that comes with, you know, if you feel like you're very different from people, trying to come across like everybody else, and that doesn't come so easy for everybody. So I just wanted to take some time to kind of talk about that. I kind of feel like I'm ranting more than anything else, but I don't know. I notice other people having that issue too, and if you're somebody who experiences that, then you tend to feel really bad for that person just from your own experience. Like, yeah, I didn't like the way that felt either, and now this person's experiencing it, and you know, at least in my circumstance, like if I was talking to somebody like that, maybe they give me a reason to kind of like, I kind of know that, so get along with them pretty well and be, one thing that we already have in common. But yeah, life be a struggle, and there's just even kind of things that other people don't think about can be difficult for some. And there's nothing wrong with being yourself. There's nothing wrong with being passionate about the things that you love, the things that make you happy. And I just talked online the other day. People like these kind of things because they bring a sense of comfort, familiarity, especially with like stress. And especially if it's like fictional characters, there are ones that people can relate to from their own personal experiences. And this allows people to bond not only with these like fictional characters, but also the actors themselves. Or if it's just like a movie, if it takes place in a similar area that you grew up in and you had a life similar to somebody in that, it's people really kind of they kind of dive into things that they like, and they get emotionally invested, and that's perfectly normal. But yeah, I guess I just kind of adding to that video a little bit. But just, I thought I'd share that with you guys today in case anybody else has some similar experiences. But until next time, have a great day, guys.